What if Iron Hands was in Gen 1 OU? And finally, we get to go over one last Pokemon before we can start Generation Jumble Season 2. And we're ending off with a bang, with a Pokemon that has the most insane stats I've ever seen. Because Iron Hands here is, I'm going to say, the most unique fighting type we have. I'd argue Zamazenta is a lot weirder, but it is definitely not very versatile. Iron Hands, however, has a lot of stuff going for it. It is just absolutely insane. And this guy easily has the potential to be the best fighting type in Gen 1. But before I do, I just want to say that you guys should definitely go check something out. Yesterday, I had a video where I started the first ever Generation Jumble Council meeting. I was with Zach and Theus and Cyber DJ, and we went over all the things you might be thinking about when it comes to questions for Generation Jumble Season 2. We went over moves, the Pokemon, we also just had a little bit of speculation, went over things that might be a problem, most importantly Sneasler. I know it's a long video, but there's not really any visuals, more so just something to put on in the background while you're gaming. And I definitely think you should give it a watch, because it was a lot of fun. Not to mention, if you like what if videos, like the one you're literally watching right now, these are literally just us talking about a whole bunch of them, and also going over how they're gonna do in an actual format that that's right, you can play. Because I highly recommend you should also join the Discord server, because tomorrow we are finally starting Generation Jumble Season 2. Not to mention that you're going to have a lot of time to practice. On April 2nd, we will actually start the tournament, so that will give you plenty of time to join the server, play a few games with some people, and decide if this is something for you or not. Friendly reminder that for these battles, when we start the tournament, there's no standard time. All you need to do is just you just need a few days to ping your opponent, just talk to them, decide what will be a good time, and then just have a best of 3. And even then, the best of 3 doesn't have to be right away. If you can only do one match and then you need to wait a few hours later, that's also fine. We're going to try our best to make it work for you, and so that as many people can join as possible. And even if you don't want to play in Generation Jumble, there's still a lot of other channels, such as our Yu-Gi-Oh! Or History channel, or just general or favorites, where you can just talk about your, any media you like, or just talk about anything that, literally anything you want to talk about. It's really nice. And there's always something for everyone. We always try our best to just make it entertaining for you. But I think that's enough stalling around. I think it's time to just actually go over Iron Hands as a Pokemon. And as you see, I have Snorlax here because I just want to go over how absolutely insane Iron Hands stats are. And the best way to do that is by directly comparing it to the second best Pokemon in Gen 1 OU. So, off the bat, Iron Hands has almost identical HP. 154 minus 160. Higher attack with 140 and 110, but then you just have an absolutely insane 108 defense and 68 special defense versus 65 defense and 65 special. It is just, what were they thinking? It's also faster than Snorlax too, which is very relevant, ironically enough. To say Iron Hands is the perfect Pokemon and has the perfect stats is a massive, massive, massive understatement. This guy is just absolutely insane. And the typing is the one reason I don't think Iron Hands is Snorlax levels as powerful. Because even though I'm just going to say its stats are better, having a Psychic and Ground weakness, I'm actually going to say it's very much needed. Because otherwise, if this guy was a normal type, yeah, he's the best Pokemon in the tier by far. And there's no one I think would really disagree with that. he's just an absolute powerhouse. I think even though he has weaknesses, I think he's still by far the bulkiest Pokemon. Because he can just pretty much tank everything. Not only is his defense much, much higher than Snorlax and Chansey, but 68 special defense. Keep in mind, Tauros has a base 70 special defense. This guy is just 2 points weaker than Tauros, so it basically has Tauros' special, but it also has, like, Snorlax's HP, and it can outspeed Snorlax, Rhydon, and Swellow. It's just, I don't even know what to say. I guess we'll go for the move pool. And I'm just going to say something right now about the replays. This is very, very important. But for these replays, I did not have Sword Stance on Iron Hands. So as this video goes on, I'm going to explain how a lot of these matchups are actually a lot different. Now you're probably wondering why I had Sword Stance, or why I didn't have it, I mean. For real, I was up all night. And when I made these replays, I could have sworn when I was looking at his move pool, I didn't see it. So I was just really tired, and I guess I was just being really, really dumb. But then I'm like, okay, I already made these replays, I might as well just go for it. Because technically, I guess I'm going to argue that for the replays, it's still not exactly an inaccurate representation. Because Iron Hands still is very slow. Like, the lot of things he outspeeds or speed ties with, such as Chansey, which is huge. But one problem with Sword Stance a lot of the time is having a safe chance to set it up. And while he can tank a lot of stuff, Earthquake and Psychic are still very popular. So for these replays, especially since nowadays I only do replays for the, the more relevant matchups, like, I think it means that for a lot of one-on-ones, he probably can't actually set up a Sword Stance. Not to mention, with how, like, versatile his move pool is, I'm even going to argue that you could even have a lot of sets without Sword Stance. Because with Sword Stance, at that point, you're just, like, going over Sword Stance itself. Hyper Beam is obviously a must-have. But then you have Low Kick. Or actually, I guess we could just go over the moveset here. Body Slam, as always, is very good. Earthquake is debatably its main move. It's either that or Low Kick. Low Kick on normal types is as strong as Earthquake. However, one problem is that it's less accurate. But it also has the flinch chance. So which one you think is more suited for your team is up to you. You have Fire Punch and Ice Punch, but with your base 50 special attack, it's not worth it. I think with Stab, like, special moves are worth it, but not so much for those. But they are nice to have. It could give you something to chip Executor with. However, I'm just going to say it now, with Generation Jumble Season 2, a lot of things are getting Poison Jab, such as Gengar, Golisopod, Naganadel, Tentacruel, Venusaur. So that means Executor is actually going to have a very, very relevant poison weakness. In fact, during this Generation Jumble video, which I still think you should watch, one of the main things I went over, outside of Sneasel just being ban-worthy day one, is that Poison is actually going to be a legitimately good, and I might even say great offensive type in Gen 1. So that's just another reason why Fire Punch and Ice Punch are just not worth it. You have plenty of other things that can threaten Executor. Already went over Low Kick, so I don't think I need to go over more. Other than that, in Gen 1, it is, I think it's something weird, like 80 something or 90 something accurate. It's stupid. And for these replays, it was a massive annoyance. However, with Sword Stance, nowhere near as annoying. Like, I think it's pretty clear to say that, like, with Sword Stance, like, Low Kick can just OHKO a lot of the normal types. I'd be surprised if it couldn't. Rock Slide is good. It's not super needed, because unlike other fighting types, you're not actually with 2 Zapdos. However, without Rock Slide, you don't have any good ways of hurting it without Sword Stance. So, it's probably the best Rock Slide user outside of Rhydon, but whether you actually want to use it is up to you. I don't think it's the biggest thing in the world. But that's just me. Let's see here. Sword Stance. I feel like I can probably do a good enough job just explaining its impact without showing you replays. Not to mention, literally tomorrow, we are starting Season 2. And I guarantee you, I'm going to be reacting to a lot of replays where someone will be using Sword Stance Iron Hands. And I also guarantee you that I'll be using it myself. Because this thing is just stupid good. Okay, maybe not stupid good, it has its weaknesses. But I'm still not just over those stats. Like, these stats that, like, you know, like, they had to balance out Snorlax, or just on a Pokemon with everything that's better, or just almost better. I don't know. Now, Thunderbolt and Thunder are interesting. I think most people in my server, Saku's Domain, have sort of, like, put it to the side, because Iron Hands has a low special. However, I think it's actually very underutilized, and I think Thunderbolt, and maybe even more importantly Thunder, can be legitimately good on Iron Hands. Iron Hands, I think with Thunder, will have the capability to actually do good damage to the water types. And not just like decent chip either. Like you'll see with Starmie, Thunderbolt, but especially Thunder, can be a huge threat. So maybe it won't be worth it, but at the very least, I know I will try testing it out. And I think simply just having it in of itself is going to be a big deal, as I think that's going to mean that Pokemon like Starmie can't just be careless against you. They could be a threat if you just send them out for like nothing. I guess this is worth going over Arm Thrust, because again, during the Generation Jumble Council video, Zach and Theus was the one that brought to my attention that for Hariyama, it has Arm Thrust as a signature, which in of itself is like, okay, whatever. But then when I realized, wait, it might just be a fighting type pin missile. However, it's more accurate than pin missile, and way more importantly, it is, I hate to admit it, but it's actually kind of good. Because even at the worst case scenario, you only hit twice. Not only is it more accurate than the 85 accurate pin missile, but keep in mind, the only other fighting move it has is Low Kick. And for Low Kick, like I said before, it's basically 50 base power, so it's like hits as hard as Earthquake neutrally. Arm Thrust with 2, I think that's like, isn't that just the equivalent of just a 60 base power move? So just that alone is already going to be doing more damage than what's it called? Low Kick. And it can hit up to 5 times as well. So Arm Thrust can not only have the potential to break Substitute, I'm pretty sure it breaks Sub after just 3 Arm Thrust, but it can just do a crazy amount of damage. So I'm actually very, very excited to do a Hariyama episode. And I think when I get to Season 3, which is already planned to be a Hoenn takeover, we're going to have Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Swampert, Blaziken, Metagross. But I might also add Hariyama to the list, because I'm curious. But I'm not going to do that for Iron Hands, because even though it's a signature of Hariyama, or not a signature, a paradox, it is not Hariyama itself. And also, just way more importantly, not Hariyama, Iron Hands is already going to be incredibly good. It's bulky as hell. It already has a stab move. Technically, it has 3. Not to mention with Sword Stance, it's already going to be a huge threat. I don't think he needs a consistent fighting move. I think he's already going to be pretty great. So I don't want to give him something like this, which is just very, very easy to slap on. I think it's more interesting with low kick because it's a move that has a lot of downsides. And yes, for those of you who saw my community post today, I know I am giving or considering giving Pokemon like Gudra, Dragon Claw, Crobat, Poison Jab, and I was considering giving Wish Salamence, which is a bigger stretch than Arm Thrust and Iron Hands most likely. But I just want to go with what makes it more interesting for the Generation Jumble format as a whole. By the way, speaking of those, I think at this point it's safe to say Gudra will be getting Dragon Claw, because you guys voted yes. Crobat will be getting Poison Jab. And Salamence would have gotten Wish. However, someone in my server told me that apparently Wish doesn't work properly in Gen 1 custom games. Which is really sad. That could have been very interesting. And it also would have given Salamence a very interesting niche. But if it doesn't work, then I'm not going to bother. Which is a shame for Salamence, because now it's going to be just struggling a lot compared to the other dragon types. And someone like Iron Hands is actually really annoyed by that. Because it would have worked like Gen 3 Wish. And for those who don't know, for Gen 3, Wish doesn't heal half of your base HP. It will always just heal half your health, regardless of which Pokemon you are. So for a Pokemon like Iron Hands, to have its 100 base 54 HP, always just have that heal double. Yeah, if you could have used that in Season 2, that would have been huge. I'm going to say it now. I honestly think an entire playstyle with just Salamence and just Snorlax, Executor, Iron Hands, Chansey, or anything else with that's very bulky but doesn't have a reliable recovery, I think that could have actually been just a legitimate strategy. Which is a shame. And maybe, someone was wrong. Maybe Wish does work. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And Iron Hands would have loved that. It would have been such a great buff. But, alas, he just has to settle for just being bulky and no leftovers. Which, to be fair, is also pretty good. They're just with, Sword Stance, either Earthquake or Low Kick. And to be honest, Earthquake's probably just better, since you can also use the hit Gengar, Hyper Beam, and then whatever you want. You can have, I guess you can still have Low Kick. But another interesting thing is that with Substitute, it's just like Rhydon or Swampert or any of those super bulky Pokemon, where you have enough HP to where I think it's always 101, which means Nightshade and Seismic Toss cannot break the Substitute with one attack. That's not so relevant with Nightshade anymore, because now that Gengar has Poison Jab, it's always just going to use that instead. But Chansey, Seismic Toss isn't going anywhere, so that's actually pretty huge, because Iron Hands already has a speed tie, so if it has to substitute up, and it can just set up a free Sword Stance, Chansey is going to be screwed. Not to mention, because of Iron Hands is, simply just insane bulk, I think it can even get away with recklessly using Sword Stance boosted Hyper Beams. Because even if they switch into a Resist, admittedly Rhydon's going to hit you super hard, but I think even a Sword Stance boosted Hyper Beam is going to do pretty good damage to Rhydon. And you're bulky enough where you can survive a Earthquake, and at that point, an Earthquake of your own might have a legitimate chance to just kill Rhydon. Very interesting. Now, with Sword Stance, I think after looking at the replays that I did do, I think there's definitely a chance that it probably is just better than Minchao. Because even without the replays, or not the replays with Sword Stance, I felt like it had issues. I definitely feel like it had issues with a lot of its moves like Rock Slide and Low Kick missing, but it felt like it's still really strong and very hard to just remove from the field. But now that I remember it has Sword Stance, yeah, this guy I think is just definitively better than Minchao. Minshell's still good because of how fast it is, and with high jump kick being a better move. But it is a lot more frail. I think it's going to be a lot easier just to use Iron Hands and get away with just dominating a lot of stuff. But it's still, like... Actually, here's the really weird part. Despite that, Iron Hands might not be the best fighting type. This is the last time I'll bring it up, at least for now. But another thing I'll talk about that we mentioned in Generation Jumble Council, something that legitimately threw me off guard, Annihilape is actually really good this season. It was very, very mediocre in Season 1, with Pokemon like Sceptile and Metagross around. But we realized just how amazing a ghost fighting type really is. Because this guy is immune to normal, immune to fighting, which is, for once, really relevant. It's going to have a quad bug weakness. And keep in mind the bug types are going to have like Vespiquen signature moves as well as Bug Bite. It's going to have a poison resistance because of that ghost typing. Well, we even discovered, I don't know who, but someone discovered that he actually has a boosting move in Meditate, apparently. I don't think it shows it here because I think this is using its Gen 6 moveset, but if I were to move this to Gen 1, will it have Meditate here? Because this is what her people say. I don't see it. Is that on Primate? Okay, people might be wrong about this. But I could have sworn people said it had Meditate. Doesn't matter either way, though. Because even without that, Annihilape still just is like very great defensively. Even if you ignore the resistances I just mentioned and just go over its values as a ghost type, unlike Gengar, it's not weak to Earthquake. So just because of how great it is defensively alone, and well, I guess people are wrong about having a boosting move, even without that, it's still just super strong. And it's going to be able to resist a lot of the stuff in the Season 2 format. Iron Hands and Minshell are probably going to be easier to use. And Sneasler, I think it's going to get its ass quick banned. But after like the dust settles, Annihilape might be the best fighting type, and not Iron Hands. But what do you think? Because as you can tell, like, there's a lot going for Iron Hands. But a lot of Pokemon, such as Annihilape, could be annoying for it. So it'll be fun to see. And that's something we're going to find out tomorrow when we actually play Generation Jumble. Now let's just get into the replays, shall we? If Sword Stance would have been relevant, I'll just bring it up here. I think this is definitely one of the ones where it would have. But I don't think it changes things too much. Because Iron Hands already eats up a Earthquake very easily. So going for Sword Stance here, it probably could survive. I'm not sure if... what's it called? I'm not sure if with Sword Stance, Low Kick becomes a 2-hit KO. I'm gonna say probably not. Which, and in that case, like, Tauros will probably get 3 attacks on you. And if that happens, it will have a lot of chances to get crits. So this is a could go either way. But luckily, it's a lot better with Snorlax. You're faster. And unlike Tauros, it's probably easier to just go for a Sword Stance. And this is part of the reason why Earthquake isn't just better than Low Kick. Because for when the stuff that you are faster than, having a 30% chance to flinch is really, really huge. So Iron Hands could probably go for a Sword Stance. It might not even take as many Earthquakes as it would against Tauros, because you might be able to flinch, which is just super dangerous towards Snorlax. But you can also just not use Sword Stance at all, and just go for as much coverage as you can, whether you be using Rock Slide, or Thunderbolt, or Thunder. You can customize your Iron Hands in a lot of ways, which can also mean that it can take on a lot of other Pokemon. So nothing is safe around it. And I already said this before, but Chansey cannot break the substitute on its own, which is one scientific toss. I forgot to mention it, but you can probably just assume this on your own. A critical low kick, I think, does flat out OHKO all three of the normal types. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it does. The only one I think might survive is Snorlax, but even then, it's been a while since I made these replays. I made these replays hours ago. But it doesn't matter either way, because it's very risky to have your normal type against Iron Hands anyways. So you probably don't risk it. Now, hot take though, I think you might risk the Alakazam matchup if you're the Alakazam player. Because I think Alakazam might have a pretty good chance against Iron Hands, but I don't know. Like, I think with those big Iron Hands, he can probably take Alakazam spoons. But Alakazam is just so fast that he keeps his spoons and he'll probably get a crit Psychic. By the way, speaking of Alakazam, unlike Generation Jumble Season 1, where you just had the omnipresent Metagross just completely invalidating its entire existence, with Sneasel in the format and you having a speed tie with it, with fighting types like Minshao, or Iron Hands here, or even Annihilape, Alakazam is going to be a lot better. Like, a lot better than Season 1. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much of a big improvement he and both Annihilape have. And it's going to be interesting to see how Pokemon like Starmie adapt. Because Starmie, I think we talked about this in the video, will probably not use Thunderbolt that much anymore because there's Dragon types. I didn't use Clamp for these replays, because I just want to see how much well Kick and Thunderbolt do. You're going to see here Thunderbolt, even when base 50 special, did that to a base 70 special Pokemon. Or I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure Quester's base 70 special. So Iron Hands can hit surprisingly hard if it's super effective coverage. That's why I think having Electric Stab is honestly not that bad. Now for Thunderbolt, it's already a 22 a KO. Keep in mind for Tauros, it is a 3-hit KO with Thunderbolt. But for Starmie, which we'll go over later, I'm pretty sure Thunder you need to 2-hit KO it. But I could be wrong. We'll find that out later. Now for Executor, this is just completely unwinnable. But this replay is really funny. I have something stuck in my throat right now. I'm not sure what it is. But in this replay you see here, Iron Hands just got completely lucky. It got everything it could have wanted. Getting 2 misses with Sleep Powder. Getting it paralyzed. Even got a Hyper Beam off. And Executor still won. I know the Executor crit, but I think we can all agree that didn't matter. It probably won either way once it put the Iron Hands to sleep. So this is like, I don't think I can show a better example of just how unwinnable this matchup really is. Iron Hands had everything going for it that match, and it still lost. And Gengar is interesting. Psychic does not do enough damage, so Earthquake will be a 2-hit KO. But Gengar does have a good crit rate. So you're still not out of the woods. Not to mention Hypnosis can still be annoying. But I think because of how dangerous Iron Hands is, you do not risk it at all. Not sure why you would. Now for Rhydon, you're faster, which is very, very important. Because a flinch chance could be what actually saves you. But low kick can still miss. You can also just not get the flinch. So it's probably could go either way. But both are like so important to your team, it might just not be worth risking. But then again, I think it's worth noting that Iron Hands, as you'll see in a little bit, can do a very, very good job against Zapdos. So it actually could be a Rhydon alternative, which is interesting. Now, Psychic is a 2-hit KO, which is definitely a big problem. And it definitely does mean that Thunderbolt and Thunder are inherently less consistent options against Army, because special drops are just going to make those moves just unviable. However, it still might be worth it. I might be wrong about this, but like, you're going to see how it does without Thunderbolt. It just does significantly worse. Like, let's see how much Body Slam does here. Yeah, not that much. With Sword Stance, sure, you can threaten it, but you need Electric Zap to put up a fight. And last but not least, we're going up for Zapdos. So, Zapdos, obviously, Thunderbolt, you just resist. And Drill Peck does, like, absolutely nothing. Even a crit, like, Iron Hands can very easily shrug off. You need Rock Slide to 3-hit KO it. But this is another matchup where I think Sword Stance is very, very relevant. Because Iron Hands can very easily survive like a turn or two just to set up Sword Stance. And if that's the case, it can just like overpower Zapdos with any move it wants. Even Body Slam, I know, will do more than enough damage. So, actually, now that I re-looked at all the replays, I guess Sword Stance wasn't as important as I thought. Like, a lot of these, I think I would have done the same moves either way. So, that's good. But I still cannot stress enough how important it is. It has Sword Stance. It's... out of all the Pokemon in Generation Jumble Season 2, Armaldo, Minchao, Haxorus, the best Sword Stance user will be, without a doubt, Sneasler. But Sneasler, I know, is going to get its ass banned. So if that's the case, Iron Hands probably becomes the best Sword Stance user afterwards. And that, it's definitely going to be a big deal. It's going to be a really nice niche. Here are the matchups. This should be moved to Gray now that there's Sword Stance. This could potentially be moved that could go either way. This should probably just be and could go either way, in all honesty. I think Tauros actually could be moved to good because of Sword Stance. But I think everything else is fine, I think. But maybe you could put Jinx in unwinnable. But yeah, what do you think? Iron Hands, as you can tell, is very good. I am really, really excited for Generation Jumble Season 2. I definitely think you should join the server, because there's a lot of fun things that we're going to do there. And you're going to need a little bit of time to actually practice the format. I think I'm still going to immediately make the Creation Trio videos as celebration for 800 subscribers. But I'm also going to be uploading videos for Generation Jumble. And I think unlike last season, when there was a big pause and a big break between that, having a break because I went to California and got sick, I think this time, since I've been talking about it a lot with you guys, I'm hoping you guys are actually going to watch the Generation Jumble videos. It will mean a lot to me that you guys would see those, because it really is a fun format. And unlike last format, which was just a lot of random Pokemon that you guys voted for, this time, it's going to be much more calculated, and it's going to be more of a theme and more competitive in nature, because it's different factions just trying to fight for dominance. And I hope to see you there. But until then, this is Grandback. I look forward to hearing from you.